I'm fine to start.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I want to welcome you to the Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 regular meeting of the Palm Springs Planning Commission. Can I have a report on the posting of the agenda, please? Or a roll call first, yes.
Chair Wormiak?
Wormick, present.
Wormick. Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Present.
Commissioner Murphy? Commissioner Rotman?
Here. 4 members are present, and we have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, the agenda was available for public access on the City Hall exterior bulletin board by 9:00 p.m. on Thursday, November 2nd, 2023, and was also posted on our website in accordance with city's policies and procedures. And we have posted in accordance with state regulation.
Thank you. I'm looking for an acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 This is a time for public comments. This has been set aside for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on consent calendar and other agenda items. Please note that the Planning Commission is prohibited from taking action on items that are not agendized tonight. Each member of the public will have 3 minutes. Testimony for public hearings can be offered at this time, or they can be offered when the item comes before the commission. Three of the items tonight are public hearing items. Hyphen Wine Shop and the 2 Asina items are public hearing items. So if you wish to testify on those items, you can either do it now or you can do it at the time that we come to the hearing. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
So, Madam Chair, there's nobody on the Zoom call. We do have several members in the audience who have signed up to speak. I would also remind folks who didn't hear earlier, if you would like to speak on any of the items, the hearings tonight, items 2A, 2B, or 2C. 2A is hyphen, 2B and 2C are the Asina items. Please use the sign-up sheet up here to sign up so that we can call you in order. And as the chair has indicated, if you would like to speak on those items now before the hearings, you are welcome to do so. So we would just ask that you come up to the microphone now, or you can wait until the item is heard.
It looks to me as if the public is choosing to speak on the items as they come before us. So I'm going to close the public hearing. The first item is the consent calendar. It is approval of the minutes of October 25th, 2023. On this item, before we move on it, I would like to make a change. Director Hadwin informed me that there was a mistake in the way the director's report was written up, and the request to look at the college-specific plan was a request of the city council and not the mayor, so that if we are approving it, I would like to have that change included. Are there any other changes?
Yeah, I would note there's just a typo on page 2 of the minutes. Under 2A for Cadence Group, under the motion, Miller seconded by Murphy, should eliminate the words continue to. It was just seconded by Murphy to approve with staff recommendations, recommended conditions.
Wasn't there an addendum on that too?
There was.
Is that included?
Staff recommended conditions as well as the planning commission additional conditions, yeah. Good point.
Typically, we would word that, if I might, if you're open to this, Commissioner Miller, it should say Miller seconded by Murphy to approve with staff and added conditions.
Yes.
Apologies for that oversight.
So with those 2 changes, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of October 25.
I'll second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wormick?
Yes?
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rotman.
Yes.
And just as an FYI, as you call the roll, please call the person who made the motion and then seconded the motion first, and then go through the rest of the roll. And welcome to these meetings. Okay, the next item is item 2A. It's a request by PS Social Group, Inc., doing business as Hyphen Wine Shop, for an amendment to a previously approved conditional use permit for a Type 42 liquor license located at 1007 North Palm Canyon Drive. Can we get a staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this is a previously approved CUP for a wine shop on North Palm Canyon Drive. The Planning Commission approved on 9/1/21 a Type 20, which was a carryout liquor license to open the wine shop for craft beer and wine. At the time, the PC allowed for wine and beer tastings poured by representatives. That was a condition of approval that you added at the time. The applicant has been doing that, but they have decided to come in and get a CUP amendment to add a Type 42 on-site consumption for wine and beer tastings poured by the business themselves. And when the applicant comes up, he'll be able to give you a better description of the liquor license types and why he's requesting that today. They also would like to add a 180 square foot outdoor patio in the rear of the wine shop. And this will allow patrons to sit outside and have a glass of wine. The site is located, as I mentioned, 1001 North Palm Canyon Drive. This is a 3-unit inline building that has retail shops within it. And in the back is a parking lot, and the area for the outdoor patio, 180 square feet, is this terracotta color right here under this tree. Just to go through some photographs, this is the front of the current store with other retail spaces beside it. The rear parking lot looking towards where the patio would go, the outdoor seating, which is in this little courtyard here. And then a closer up view of the rear door that will go out into the 180 square foot area designated for consumption. In your application packet, there's a site plan showing the layout of the site. Once again, this is the unit in a 3-unit complex. The findings of the CUP amendment can be met for a Type 42 liquor license. We recommend approval with conditions. In your packet, there was an error that was handed out today. In the previous CUP approval, there was plan number 3, the store interior. The very last sentence should be stricken, meaning that there will be interior or exterior seating allowed. So that is, and that handout that was given to you, the yellow highlighted, that will be stricken in the conditions of approval for this approval. And then also, we wanted to add Plan 10, which addresses amplified music, saying any outdoor music shall be kept at a background low level to allow patrons to maintain conversations. The noise ordinance shall always be maintained or complied with. So, Chair, in your packet, there were some emails that you received from patrons and residents that supported the application. That concludes my report, and I'll answer any questions if you'd like.
Are there any questions of staff? I have 2. Planning condition on, let's see, number 6. Is there any reason why, if there was a change in the hours of operation, this couldn't be handled at a staff level and they would have to come back for a CUP modification?
In planning number 6, the hours of operation reflect revised hours that were made by the applicant, and he may want to describe it. From the previous approval, they were open longer. He is asked that the hours be changed
And these are very restrictive hours. I would rather have staff have the flexibility. We would never impose such a narrow range of hours on an applicant.
The code does allow for us to make administrative changes to a CUP if we determine them to be immaterial to the overall conditional use permit. If you would like additional certainty as the commission on that, you could clarify the condition that say these hours may be modified, you know, within whatever parameters or generally by approval of the planning director if you so wish.
And similarly, on planning condition number 10, no outside storage of any kind, could a change in this be handled by the planning director?
Meaning if they would want to do outdoor storage?
Yeah, and the planning director deemed it was
Right.
appropriate.
That is an insignificant request, and we could handle that at staff level.
Okay, thank you for those answers. The other question I had is, it looks like we are in PL1 using language that's a little easier, which is an appropriate ABC liquor license reflecting activities on site. We don't have to require that it's a type 42 license, but just that it's an appropriate license.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think we have a history of sort of tying together what are, in my mind, two separate administrative processes, right? We are the City of Palm Springs granting a conditional use permit for the uses that are going to be operating in this business. You had previously opined on there being a wine store. You had previously opined on there being wine tasting. However, the previous conditions of approval and the resolution that were approved by the commission really tied them into specific ABC licenses. And in further conversation with them, with our legal team, et cetera, we would like to make sure that there's clarity for both you and for the public in terms of what ABC licenses they may be seeking without necessarily boxing them in through the CUP process, because that's really not our process to run.
So we're not tying them into a process at this point and correcting
Right.
what we did last time, because I know that we wanted them to do tastings,
That's right.
to have the flexibility.
You know, and just to elaborate on that, if they were to seek a type of license from ABC that went beyond what the conditional use permit granted, ABC would coordinate with us to make sure that it was consistent with our approvals.
Thank you. Are there any, I know I've asked my questions, nobody else has follow-ups. At this point, the public hearing is open. The applicant has 10 minutes.
John, come up to the mic.
And introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is John Lee Bonatti, and I'm the owner and operator of Hyphen Wine Shop. I'm planning this because I do want to do tastings, like you had mentioned when I was back here in 2021, well, in a Zoom meeting. But it wasn't understood how the process works with the ABC. I was just told, yes, you can just apply for this type 86 license and just do tastings. They never told me that it was, you had to have somebody from the distribution side, a wine sales rep, or somebody from the winery to come and do the tastings. I couldn't do them myself. So after about a year now, it's almost a year, December will be a year that I've had this, and it's difficult to get these people out here because, one, winemakers don't want to travel either from Europe, where most of my collection is from, or Northern California, and the sales reps don't want to travel the 2 to 2.5 hours from LA and San Diego to come out and do the tastings. So that's why I'm applying for this license, and also have the option of people to be able to enjoy a glass of wine outside and out back. And you had mentioned music. I have no intention of adding any type of outside music, because I don't think it would be, I don't think the neighbors would like that at all. And I want it to be more of like a chill, calm atmosphere, because we have that beautiful view of the mountain, and I don't think music would lend to that. And I don't know any outdoor space that has music right now, so I would like to continue in the same vein.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other members of the public that are here to testify on this item? We have a member of the public.
We have Don Cecil.
Good evening. My name is Don Cecil. I'm a resident of Bliss Way in Palm Springs. Let me start by saying how refreshing it is that we're not talking about a Starbucks, a fast food chain restaurant, or a cannabis dispensary. As a fellow small business owner, I can't imagine what it took to open a small business during COVID. I've been a customer of the store. It's fantastic. I encourage the commission to do anything it can to help this business be more successful and add to the vibrancy of Palm Springs. So, thank you.
You have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you.
The matter is before the commission. I'm sensing that we would be affirmative on this. I would like to make the motion with a couple of changes. I would like to accept staff's two change.
Excuse me, Chair, can I ask the
Oh,
applicant a question?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so why the change in hours?
It's a lot working 7 days a week, and I just was burning myself out, so I've changed my hours instead of being open till 8 o'clock every single night, 9 o'clock every single night to 8 o'clock, just having that extra hour. I'm at the shop pretty much by myself, just recently hired somebody back in May, and I'm hoping to hire somebody else as this process moves along.
Would you not want flexibility that at some point you might want the extra hour?
Well, my experience was in the very beginning, as we were in our on-season, there were a lot of intoxicated people coming in from restaurants, buying bottles. I wasn't very comfortable with that. If I sell something to somebody who is mildly buzzed and they have my bag in their hand with a bottle and they get hit by a car, I could be held liable for that. So I would rather not have that liability, and I will do anything I can to limit my liability.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Going back to the commission, I'd like to make the motion to approve this. I still would like to leave flexibility and accept the two conditions that staff recommended. I would leave the amplified music in case you ever change your mind. But you're not required to have it. It just gives you flexibility. I would also, on the hours of operation, let that be handled by the planning director. And on PLN 10, let that be handled also by the planning director in terms of outside storage. We just want to leave this as flexible. I don't know if I have a second, but I'd like to leave this as flexible as possible for you. Do I have a second on that motion?
Chair, just a clarification. With the sheet that we just got, they have listed PLN 10 as amplified music and not storage. So is it PLN 11?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
It would-
renumbered PLN 11.
It would be
for your motion.
PLN 11.
Okay, all right, thank you. In that case, I'll second your motion.
Is there any discussion? Before we do that, I think I appreciated the love letters to your shop, which is the correspondence we got. And had I not been chair of the commission, I would have written one as well as a customer.
Thank you.
Would you call the roll, please?
Chair Wormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Rotman,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along. 2B is a request by MSA Consulting on behalf of EMP2 for a proposed tentative track map 38721 to subdivide an undeveloped 6.47 acre parcel into 36 single-family residential lots, 4 lettered lots, and private streets within the Asina Plan Development District. Before staff report, just to say that I live at Asina. I live more than 500 feet from both of these parcels, and I'm not on the board of Asina, and for that reason, I'm not recusing myself. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. So what you have before you tonight is an application for a subdivision only. So only to subdivide the 6.47 acres into 36 lots. The products, that means the housing products for these for this tract map will be coming back to the Planning Commission as a final development plans in the future should the maps be approved. So once again, these 37721 is a 6.47 acres that is being proposed to be subdivided into 36 lots. These lots will range from 4,050 to 9,767 square foot in size. Within the Encina Plan Development District, the minimum lot size approved in 1994 and 2003 is 2,500 square foot. So the lot sizes are in conformance with the Plan Development District and the Encina design guidelines. So I'm just going to show the area view of the site. So this is the overall Great Encina development. This is this highlighted area is the tract map that is before you at this moment. So within Encina, there are different development areas, and they are designated as planning areas 1 through 7. So 38721 is within planning area 7A. Again, this is that tract right there. When Encina was approved in 2004, there were different development areas, again, designated as planning areas. In this case, at that time, the densities and the number of housing units to be located in all of these tract homes were determined by the City Council. So, for instance, if you look at planning area 7A, that tract is designated for single-family residential development only. It would have allowed up to 255 single-family residential units. However, the number that is being proposed is well less than the number that would have been allowed by the PDD. Again, so it is conforming with the general plan designation and the Encina development design guidelines as well. Here is the map itself, and as I mentioned earlier, it is proposing to subdivide the tract into 36 single-family residential lots and 4 lettered lots. I have some pictures to show the current conditions of the area in question, and in particular, I want to make a reference to the access, the driveway that leads into these tract maps that's already there along Grandview.
That doesn't apply to this, to the 37
No,
lots.
no, but this is
It applies
just
to the other area?
correct. That's correct.
Are you doing both staff reports at this time?
I want to do one at a time.
Then
Because you
we
only
can
read-
go, we can go to the curb cut, the cut-ins for the next one.
Okay. So there were some questions raised regarding the proposed tract maps, specifically about the road layouts, the circulation, and the lettered lots, and maintenance issues, and then the question of additional open space, dog park, and then the public integrity disclosure form. I want to make clear that when tract maps are submitted to the planning department, there are 13 additional outside agencies that review these maps, including the engineering department and, of course, the fire department. They look at road layouts in particular because the city does have the, standards for road layouts, and they did not have issues with those. And when the questions were raised, we brought it back to them, and we were told that they are all in conformance with the city standards. And that includes the circulation itself, the dead-end streets, and as far as the lettered lots are concerned, some of them are already in existence. Those are meant for easements and for open space areas So, and that is applicable to all track maps. This is not, this particular map is not different than the ones that we brought before you in the past. And as far as additional open space are concerned, because this is not an amendment, and when PDD 231 was established, the City Council already designated areas as open space. So it would not be appropriate for staff to ask for additional open space at this time, and that will include a dog park. As for the public integrity disclosure form, that has been revised, and the revised one is included in your package. Again, the question of street layouts was brought to the attention of the applicant, and we were told that they would not be making revisions to them. This exhibit that is that's before you now was presented to staff, indicating that those type of street layouts are already in existence within Escena development itself. Now, when we are reviewing track maps, there are 7 different findings according to the track map, according to the Subdivision Map Act. The 7 findings must be made for the Planning Commission and the City Council to approve. Now, staff has reviewed and analyzed all the 7 findings, and all the findings are in affirmative, and therefore staff will be recommending that the Planning Commission approve this track map as proposed. Again, when in the future, when the housing products will be presented to the planning department, it will be in the form of final development plans. That will come back to you. At that time, we will review all the development standards, such as the density, such as lot coverage, such as setbacks. So there will be time to review that again, and that would also include landscaping. At this point, staff will be recommending that the Planning Commission readopt the MND as the controlling environmental document under CEQA guidelines and approve TTM 38721 at this point, subject to all the conditions that were originally imposed on the greater Escena development. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm available to answer any of your questions, and I believe the applicants are also in the audience to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
This is a point for staff questions. Commissioner Rotman?
Yeah, in Escena, do they allow street parking?
There are some areas, I don't have those specific streets on top of my head. I was hoping that the staff from engineering department will be present tonight. There are some areas that would allow street parking.
The reason I'm asking is the dead-end streets are only 29 feet wide. So if there's a parking lane or 2 parking lanes,
Yeah.
it's not really, I'm just wondering what standards, if street parking is restricted, then you've got guest parking issues in this track map to deal with, especially where the properties that access the dead-end streets. And I'm wondering, on the streets that you were dead-end, which set the precedent, were they also done at 29 feet wide? Or were they done at like 37 or wider?
So the street that would allow parking will be wider than the 29. So, and that is still consistent with these city standards.
Yeah, I just wonder how the impact on street parking for that.
Yeah.
And then the other question I have is, do you know what Lot D is for? Is that an easement? And that is at the southeast part of the site plan, the track map.
Yeah, so let me just pull up my,
As he's doing that, Commissioner Rotman, I did want to point out engineering condition number 10 in the package, where engineering has conditioned the right-of-way to be a minimum of 28 feet, so that a rolled or wedge curb is provided such that vehicles may park partially out of the traveled way. So we can get additional clarification from them, but that was examined as part of their condition.
The answer is street parking is allowed, not residents are encouraged to park in their driveways and
And guests?
garages, but guests park on the street, and residents can get a pass when they have special conditions to park on the street over extended periods of time.
Okay.
So it is an issue. I think the streets that should be looked at are in the Vermilion section, where it's really the only place where the streets that were noticed, most of the ones the consultant noticed are actually extended driveways and turn-ins and not streets. But in the Vermilion section, because it's only one street long, the side streets do cut off of that, and those are the only real functioning hammerheads in the property.
Thank you.
So in response to your question, that's true, that's correct. Letter Law D is an easement.
It is. Okay. Thank you.
And what is it an easement for?
I think it's indicated here as an open space, meaning that there will be no structure on it.
There's no structure, but that one, I guess, do other people have questions? I do have a question about Lot D,
Okay.
where on the opposite end of Street O, Street D, that exact same section is divided between the two parcels and given to the residents as as additional land, and that is an exceedingly small lettered lot. And that will be a question for the applicant, is if that can be given to the residents as well, so that it isn't, that tiny a lot is hard to maintain.
Yeah. Okay. I will allow the let the applicant speak to that when they come up.
Other questions? I have some, and they concern, this is an old development. It was entitled in, I think, am I correct, 2002 or 2004?
Which development are you referring to, Madam Chair?
Asina, the entirety of Asina.
Yeah, so it was 2004.
2004. So
Correct.
the street that this comes off of, which is Grandview,
Correct.
I think in the pictures you showed, it has a wall in the back, and I think what the lettered lot on the north side is constructed, but the wall and the street cuts are not constructed at this point in time that run along Grandview.
Yeah.
I believe Grandview was turned over to the association about 7 to 8 years ago, and the land on each side of it is maintained by the association. One of the questions I have, and it's the possibility of putting a condition in that some issues be resolved before the final track map is given, and that would be the placement of the wall, the destruction of any landscape that belongs to the association, replacement of trees, if those things can be done, and also one of the gates belongs to the association, but 3 of them do not, and I think resolving with the HOA the appropriate entrance for construction vehicles, those kinds of issues that need to be resolved, so that the provisions, I don't know where the provisions are for curb cuts, but currently that entire area is maintained and irrigated. So basically preservation of landscape, whose responsibility, the exact placement of the wall, and whether it's on, hopefully it doesn't intrude or destroy landscape that exists. Those kinds of issues need to be resolved with the association.
Right.
And are those things that we can condition this on?
So, in speaking with our attorneys, I think it's difficult to have that conversation or condition that at this point in the process. So those kinds of issues need to be resolved between the developer and the HOA through the CCNR process, and that is a sort of a legal process that needs to occur between property owners.
And can we at least say that in the conditions that those issues be resolved?
I think without directing how they're resolved, I think the commission could indicate that they would like the developer to work with the HOA to address those issues in the
So
CCNR process. with
that's
the
as
final
far
map.
as we can go, okay. I know those are my questions. The other one is the frontage on the street. Those walls are already in place. The responsibility for the walls that front Gene Autry and the lettered lots are the applicants or the builder they sell it to until it's turned over?
That would be correct. So, yes. And again, I will ask the applicants to speak to that when they come up. So, yeah.
And another matter for how they get addressed post-development through the CCNRs.
Right. Other questions? If the applicant's here, you have 10 minutes for a presentation, and then we'll be opening the public hearing, and you'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you want that. And then if, after we're done, if you would stay for questions.
State your name, state your name for the record.
Madam Chair, Fernando Dutra, representing EMP2. Thank you very much. I'd like to start off by saying that I especially appreciate the relationship we've had with staff and how well staff has processed this map through. I happen to have sat in your position for 8 years in Planning Commission in my own city, so I appreciate it when we have processes that are efficient and that are well thought out and thought through. So I'm here to answer any questions, but specifically relative to item or the easement, letter D, I should say. That's a drainage easement, if you will. That's why it's the size and the configuration of that easement looks, a little bit odd and small, but that's a drainage easement. Relative to the question about parking, as a matter of fact, I drove through the track today, and there's no official on-street parking, if you will. I think that residents and Chair Wormick, you know that you live there, that people may park there when they're visitors, when they come to the residence, but that's the only thing I'm aware of. There's no official on-street parking, if you will. Specific to your question about the width of the street versus 29 versus 37, I can see your concern. And then, the questions about the conditions, while we appreciate the fact that, it's something that we work with the HOA, of course, we have a great relationship with the HOA, and I understand that would be part of the CCNRs, but everything you've mentioned is fundamentally how a responsible developer would enact when they're developing in Ascena. And we have a really good existing builder there that we're very, very proud to consider a partner, if you will. And I think they're responsible as well. And you have a very active HOA that does not let people get away with just anything. And so we want to be a responsible partner within that master plan community. And so nothing that you've mentioned is problematic for us. I would state that to the extent possible, flexibility relative to gates would be nice to have, because I don't know what the phasing of the construction is going to be. As soon as we get these maps done, of course, we want to find a partner to build it. But I think that as much flexibility as we could have, we would like that. But certainly nothing has been, that you've mentioned has been problematic for us. Yeah, and we're here. And by the way, I have MSA, our civil engineering company and planning company, here with us this evening to answer any questions that I may not know also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The matter is before the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? And if there are, there's more than one, if you would line up.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission members. My name is Mark Gilbert, and I live at Bliss Way in the Ascena neighborhood of Palm Springs. My husband and I have lived in Ascena since July of 2013. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening on items 2B and 2C. This applicant, EMP2, along with EMP1 and SunCal, are currently proposing incompatible housing developments on the east side of Ascena in Cathedral City that I believe warrants your attention. Let me pose some questions related to 2B and 2C for the Commission and staff to consider. Will any new residential developments on these lots be for sale or build to rent, otherwise known as corporate owned, like what this applicant is currently proposing on the Cathedral City lots in Ascena? Will new residential units all include ADUs, like what this applicant is currently proposing on these same Cathedral City lots? Is the city-owned parcel in Ascena suitable for new affordable housing? Should the City of Palm Springs look for mechanisms to separate the existing for-sale, single-family home community from incompatible land uses such as corporate ownership rentals, dense multifamily, and commercial and retail operations? This might include creating separate HOAs or requiring new entrances. Given the age of the original Ascena entitlements, are there any changes in airport guidelines or local and state laws that are now in conflict? We care about these issues and the intentions of EMP2, EMP1, and SunCal for the following reasons. When corporations and institutional investors own large chunks of homes in an HOA community, the ability of the individual homeowners to pass meaningful amendments to its bylaws becomes compromised. In September of this year, the New York Times reported that, quote, mortgage lenders are often hesitant to underwrite mortgages in communities with a large share of investor-owned properties, end quote. Corporate ownership takes away housing stock from first-time homebuyers like young professionals, young families, hospitality workers, police, fire, and healthcare workers. Corporate ownership also leads to a loss of property tax revenue for the city, school district, and county, since corporate-owned homes don't change hands as often as individual-owned houses. I'm here to ask the Planning Commission and city staff to slow down the efforts of EMP2 and SunCal in our neighborhood. The most important request that I have is for the Planning Commission to schedule a comprehensive study session on all activities associated with EMP2, EMP1, SunCal, and any other entities related to the declarant property owner in Ascena. Thank you for your consideration of my comments and your service to the City of Palm Springs.
Our next speaker is Audrey Joseph, followed by Don Cecil.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Audrey Joseph, and I'm a full-time resident in Ascena. I, like many of my fellow neighbors, bought into Ascena because of some of the amenities, one of them being the dog park. We have a lot of dogs. And in fact, our dog park right now is rather small for the amount of residents we have that own pets. You can see between 4 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon when people who work from home or come home from work are going out to get their dogs exercises, that the dog park is incredibly crowded. With the addition of these homes and homes in the future in Ascena, we were hoping that the dog park would be expanded. Unfortunately, I do believe this development and the one on the next item is on either side of the dog park, which limits us in our ability to expand it. And I guess what I want to know at this point is whether or not that the developer has any plans for putting in a new dog park somewhere else in Ascena, expanding our existing dog park, limiting our amenities, things we pay our HOA dues for, is just something that all of the residents that live there now would be very, very upset about. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Don Cecil.
Back again. Thank you. Ascena was easy until it wasn't. And Fernando is a great guy who knows exactly, what to say. I was a member of a volunteer group, the Ascena Task Force. I'm not here representing them. We've had several conversations with SunCal since they purchased the undeveloped properties, and I've quite frankly been underwhelmed. But what I really want to ask city staff and the commission to do is to have a study session that looks at Ascena. The way Ascena was envisioned in the 1990s doesn't have to be the way it unfolds today. So if higher density apartments or build to rent with ADUs do end up getting built in Ascena, is there a way to have them be neighbors, complementary, but not necessarily within the same HOA? All the concerns that have been outlined so far. I also think that I would really like to see the city of Palm Springs take the undeveloped lot that was originally intended as a fire station and find a way to build affordable housing. The people that come to Ascena every day to clean homes and keep yards tidy and do important work to provide for their families should be allowed to live in Ascena as well. And I don't know how that happens, but I think maybe a study session is a way to tackle that as well. I think in closing, let's not limit ourselves to what was approved in the 1990s. Let's try to accommodate new things that didn't exist back then, but also let's try to protect what is there now and the people that live there and the impacts that anything new is going to have without an evolution of thinking. So thank you.
At this time, we have no other speakers that have signed up to speak, but if you would like to speak, please come forward now. Madam Chair, we have no one else.
Thank you. The applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Madam Chair and staff, thank you. I'll say this, having served on the HOA for Ascena now for maybe a year, this is the smartest, most engaged HOA that I've served on. I've been doing this for a long time. And residents have some great ideas, and I can appreciate that. I think that when you look at the land plan and you look at these lots here relative to, the planning that was originally, I think Ascena was originally established in the 90s and then recently reapproved in 2004. But I think what happens here is you look at this and it really lends itself to single-family residential product. It really does. To me, when you're developing a residence or a community, you want consistency and continuity, right? And these lots would be consistent with the product that's there. You have a beautiful community with beautiful homes. And our vision is to apply the same level of detail, same level of care that was applied to develop the homes that are there now, to do the same thing on these two lots. Because once again, they're kind of the showcase when you drive into Ascena. And so we'd like to have a consistent product to develop there. So I can respect the ideas about dog parks. We have other product that we're going to be coming before you with, other projects. And I was just speaking with our engineering company, and I'm a big supporter of dog parks. Built a lot of them, both on the private and the public side. And so to the extent that we can work together to find other dog park areas, we will. These lots are consistent with the maps that we've drawn, and we'd like to maintain them the way they are. And by the way, it's my understanding that the current HOA is going to be putting some money into the existing dog park as well. I think we're putting money into a new fountain and making it better than what it currently is, if I recall. But anyways, that's it. Thank you.
The matter is before the commission. Comments? Any comments, starting with Commissioner Rotman?
I have some questions for the applicant.
Oh, please, if you'd come back up. And the public hearing is not closed because we'd like the questions and answers to be part of the record.
Yeah, so the first question is Lot D. You said that's a drainage easement. What exactly is that? Is it a concrete culvert? Is it just underground?
It's underground.
It's underground.
Yeah, it's underground.
Okay.
Actually, I don't want to misspeak. That's what I recall it being. I'll confirm it with my civil engineer if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Julian, is that a underground
Why don't you have him come up
Please
Yeah,
to the
have him
mic?
that's a
come
good
up
idea.
and-
Thank you.
And introduce himself.
Well, thank you.
My name is Julian Delatorre, MSA Consulting. We're in Rancho Mirage. I'm the engineer on the project, or I should say was the engineer on the project back in 2004 when it all started, and am still at least overviewing the project as it goes through. I originally thought that that space was an open space easement for drainage, but when I take a harder look at my preliminary grading plan, it doesn't appear that it is an open space drainage. It would only be overland flow and maybe emergency overflow, in which case it doesn't need to be concrete or anything like that. It's just allowing a place for water to run off in the case of a very large storm similar to what we had the other day.
So surface flow.
Surface flow, and nothing concrete would be
Okay.
in between it.
So as long as you're here,
Yeah.
my questions have to do with the hammerhead that is between lots 6 and 7.
Okay.
And then 2 and 3. They're down at the southeast part of the project. And I'm just wondering, it seems like there could be a slightly different layout for those particular properties, such that the hammerhead isn't as long as it is. I don't think fire department's going to require that much length for the hammerhead, and you could seed over some of that street, with the narrow street, to those lots. And I'm just wondering if that's something you can address.
Yeah, we looked at the layout, and the hammerheads are within the distance, shorter than the maximum distance allowed by the fire department, and consistent with several other hammerheads in the neighborhood and in the project itself. So they're not too long. They're not too long for the fire department.
They're not too short either.
They're yeah, they're not too short. You can turn a
That's what I
truck
wrote
in.
on it.
You can turn a truck in and back up and get out,
Right.
which is what the fire department's
Because
concerned about.
what you end up with is little vestiges of land, particularly between 6 and 7, that just seems totally unusable for the property. And if that were
I see.
able to be shortened,
I got you.
yeah.
Would you rather the street be extended so that there is none and everybody
No, I'd rather give it to the property owners. I think you would too.
And
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd corner, but you either, I mean, you give them a nook over here, which, I'm not sure what that does for them except give them more acres.
Since you can't park a car on there anyway, you might as well give it over to, I think you should just,
I think in the case, if the street is narrower than the what is it, 37, the other one, I think that what they're allowing is parking on one side. And then in
Okay.
the other streets, they're allowing parking on both sides.
okay. Well, it's just something to consider. And the same would be true for 2 and 3, particularly if Lot D isn't a concrete culvert. It can be landscaped, and you might just consider looking at making lots 2 and 3 larger and taking over some, reducing the street.
Yeah, I think it's important that if we're going to do that, you don't want to make it so small that it's not usable, obviously, and then so large that it's not functional for the street size. So maybe it's balancing it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as you have adequate access to those lots from the street for, I think it'll improve it a little bit. And the other question I have is, I know that there's this existing wall along Gene Autry, but, there's a lot of houses are going to be backing up to that. And I'm just curious in terms of sound transmission. Has that wall, I mean, I don't have the history with Ascena to know, but is there some sound mitigation, or do you think that wall is adequate?
Yes, the sound mitigation is in the standard city ordinances. When a developer goes in there to build, they're going to be required to I believe the decibel limit is 65 decibels, so whether that means, you know, whether it's done with glass or with the walls as normally built, they're going to ensure, the builder has to ensure that the sound decibel level inside the unit is 65 or below. And so that's standard, I think that's standard kind of California Building Code things, and also in the city ordinance. Because I remember back in 2005 going over that, and that basically being the final word is that when you get to construction, if you were building only a one-story, that wall will serve some purpose in terms of sound attenuation. If you're building two-story, then it doesn't help that much, but still the requirement falls on the home builder, and the unit itself has to keep the decibel level below 65.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions?
I just had a question on Lot C. It's piggybacking on Robert's question. So is that going to be just installed that whole parcel along Genotry?
Lot C, I see Street C.
Lot C is the entire side of Genotry.
Oh, the entire lot on Genotry? Okay, I'm looking at
That long, skinny, yeah. So what's is that just pulverized granite, or what's actually?
No, actually, so Lot C, it falls outside the wall. Falls on the Genotry side of the wall.
Oh,
correct?
that's okay. That's why.
Right.
Okay.
The way that we're actually gonna create the track map is that we're gonna follow that wall. And even though it has multiple jogs, that will be the rear
That'll be
property
exterior,
line
okay.
for all of the homes along, back up to the Genotry Trail.
Thank you.
Following up on those questions, and for both of you, if you look at Wilson Lane where I live, it has the streets, it extends, and you can find it on your map. What they've done is they've given that land to the properties, and they give it to them to extend their driveways. It isn't actually a hammerhead, it's given away. It's not on this map, but it's
Okay.
in your maps.
Oh, it's in the presentation.
It's in the presentation maps where I think you identified some areas as hammerheads, which actually aren't. The land that you identified was given to the property owners, and it wasn't turned into streets. It was allowed to be driveways or entryways or, so following up on that, are you in agreement with the areas between 2 and 3 and 6 and 7? Can you shorten those streets and give some of that land and give Lot D to the homeowners?
I think I would like to just interject for a moment, because some of these are conditions that this was reviewed by the city's engineering department and by our
Right.
fire and safety. So to go down this path, I just want to caution that we would need to make sure that they are in agreement and that this isn't coming from the city
Absolutely.
regulation.
But in terms of Lot D, if they're in agreement, it saves you money, actually, because you wouldn't have to landscape it. Are you in agreement if our fire and police and people who review this are willing?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Absolutely. It actually adds value to the individual lot.
Right.
But
it's-
subject to engineering
So,
and planning.
so if we
and
can
everything.
look at those streets and see if we can shorten the streets.
Absolutely.
And give,
Yep.
increase the lot size, it's something that I think would be good
Yep.
for the homeowners. I have one question for you, Fernando, which has come up, and I think you answered it to me. Are you intending these to be single-family for sale homes?
We are. I mean, the business plan isn't before you this evening, obviously, but our intention is that this is perfect for sales. And given the continuity and given the, the location of the individual lots, and given the interest that we've had from some pretty smart developers, that's what it lends itself to be,
Thank you. Then for your engineers, for MCA, on Grandview, the lines that you've drawn for the wall, and I'm assuming the walls that you're planning, are they similar to the existing walls that are there for other properties where you'll see this line that shows the fence, the storm fence? Does that
Do you mind if I
line?
approach it so you can get, I just want to make sure that we're looking at the same thing.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay, if we're looking at this, this is a line that doesn't exist right now. I think it goes to
property line.
property, it probably doesn't.
Property line.
Yeah, the property line. Does that match where the storm fence is?
So that storm fence on the,
On Grandview?
I think it does. Just looking at it, because if you look at the relationship between the sidewalk and that line,
So in terms of that, are you, and it's just, it's a question as you do that, because the area on one side of on the east side of the storm fence has been landscaped to some extent, are you setting that line to match where the landscape is? And with the installation of the wall, do you anticipate taking out any of the landscape?
Chair Wermick, our intention is to maintain the existing landscape design that's part of that right-of-way, if you will, you know? So anything outside of our property line, which I would consider right-of-way, would be consistent with what the current design is for the landscape. That's an
Okay.
easy thing, yeah. I mean, that's an easy decision to make. And quite frankly, it also adds to the overall feel of the community as well. I mean, we have some beautiful landscape right-of-way areas out there, and God, I know how much we spend on landscaping out there. And it's a big attraction for sales as well, and so, yes, we'd like to maintain that.
Okay, that's basically a question. I think that's it for my questions on this. Commissioner Rotman.
Yeah, Fernando, you mentioned about gating the, if I understood, you would prefer to be able to gate this, is that right?
Oh, no, we're going to maintain it the way, the current gate system that's there, it's going to stay exactly the same way. I think the question was, if I recall, it was, the chair had asked whether or not we'd be willing to work with the developer, whether we'd be willing to work with them with the HOA relative to the construction and defining a construction access, if you will, out of one of the 4 gates. And of course we are. Yeah, I think that was. I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
don't know if I recall that correctly.
it's typical, it is typical there that the HOA works with the builders, and I'm assuming at some point it will be a builder to determine which gates the construction traffic goes through to be the least intrusive to the existing homes.
Okay.
So it's merely, it's items that need to be established eventually, and because the community is 650 homes built out, the negotiations or the discussion between the builders and the declarant, the builders, and the HOA is important.
I would like to suggest that the northerly gate is probably a good location to bring construction traffic on, because EMP2 owns the northerly properties, which they could go across and get to this, probably go by the fewest number of homes if you go through the northerly route and then through the big vacant lot.
And that's been used in the past as a gate, so just, it's one of the items
Okay.
that I think need to be looked at.
Thank you for clarifying.
No other questions before I close the public hearing? The matter is before the commission.
Madam Chair, can I just make one additional comment?
Yes.
Just as a reminder for what is before us tonight, which is really the lines on the map that we are creating in terms of the lot lines and the street layout and the lettered lots. Issues related to the walls or other above-ground infrastructure are not what is before us tonight. Those would be addressed potentially as the future phases of development come in for future approvals.
except to the extent that we ask that those issues, some of the issues get resolved.
Without providing direction and with the
Without
agreement
providing
of the
direction,
developer.
yes, correct. In terms of crafting a motion, Commissioner Rotman, do you want to do it, or you want me to do it? Okay. Okay, with this, the motion is to approve this with a couple of exceptions. With regard to Lot D and Street D, the applicant has indicated that they're willing to, with the approval of the appropriate engineering, fire, and other departments, change Lot D from a lettered lot to something that would belong to the homeowners, and look at shortening those two streets at the Hammerhead end to give more of the land to the lots.
And to clarify, that was between lots 7 and 8 and 2 and 3? at the
Lots 7 and 8 and 2 and 3.
It's 6 and 7.
6 and 7 and 2 and 3. And then without dictating what conditions, how the conditions are resolved, that prior to final track map, they work through with the HOA wall placement, preservation of existing landscape, replacement of landscape that's removed, and entry, basically egress, ingress and egress for construction. I think that covers, and maintenance of the existing lots until they're turned over to the HOA.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I had ingress and egress, landscaping, maintenance, and irrigation?
Maintenance and irrigation of existing lots, and the wall placement within the placement of the wall within the thoroughfare, I think. Without dictating how that gets resolved, but that it does get resolved. And that's on Grandview only. It's, there's a long lettered lot on the outside on Gene Autry. I think that is Lot C.
Lot C.
So is there a second?
I'll second.
Is the motion for planning director, is it sufficiently loose for you?
I think we can work with it, Madam Chair, and I will rewatch the video to make sure that I capture it correctly.
Thank you. Okay. Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Rotman,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Moving right along. And this is item 2C, request by MSA Consulting, Inc. on behalf of EMP2 LLC for a proposed tentative tract map 38722 to subdivide an undeveloped 13.2 acre parcel into 83 single-family residential lots, 9 lettered lots, and private streets within the Asina Plan Development District. Staff report, please.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. So this staff presentation will be very brief in that this parcel, this tract map is also within Asina development, just as the one you just reviewed and approved. The difference between this one and the difference between 3722 and the previous one is that this is located in planning area 5A, and it is a 13.2 acres that's been proposed to be subdivided into 83 single-family residential lots. The lot sizes will range from 4,050 to 10,142 square foot. Again, the minimum lot size required in a SENA plan development district is 2,500 square foot. So it is in conformance with the SENA design guidelines. So this is the area view of the site. This is planning area 5A. It is originally known or designated as lot 45 and 46 of the greater SENA development. And this is the land distribution within different planning areas in SENA. So this is this area that is highlighted is 38722 or planning area 5A. So as with 38722-1, when the SENA Classic PDD was originally established by council, it was designed to accommodate up to 321 single-family homes, assuming the lot sizes were a lot less than what is being proposed tonight. So again, this proposal is in conformance with the density allowed within the track map. Here is the entire map itself. Again, it is for 83 single-family residential homes, and there are 9 lettered lots on this parcel. There are existing five of those lettered lots are already in existence. They are for, and let me just go back and review or share with you what those existing 5 lettered lots are. So for instance, lettered lot D is an existing 5-foot easement that belongs to DWA. Lettered lot A is an existing 5-foot Verizon easement. It is located at the northern and southern sections of the proposed map.
Can you point those out?
Yes, my eyes are not the best. So, lettered lot D is along the east boundary of the project. And lettered lot A is also on the southern part of the lot. And lettered lot G is an existing 20-foot sidewalk and pedestrian landscape area. And lettered lot E is also an existing 10-foot gas easement located at the northerly end of the boundary. And lettered lot I is an existing 20-foot Riverside County flood Riverside County flood control easement located at the southerly end of the boundary. So I have some of these pictures relate mostly to 38722, and it shows the existing conditions of the lots. This is along Gene Autry, and the wall that the applicant was speaking to earlier. And the same questions were raised regarding this track map as was previously discussed in 387-221. And the same issues regarding the road layouts, the circulation, the lettered lots, maintenance issues, the open space, the dog park, and of course the public, a revised public integrity disclosure form that we talked about earlier. It's exactly the same as the previous one that you just approved. Again, the same exhibit was provided to staff, and they had the same position at the time. So this is also included in your package. And again, pursuant to Section 6474 of the Subdivision Map Act, there are 7 findings that are required to be made. Those were all made and analyzed in your staff report, and they were all in support of an approval of the proposed subdivision. As a result, staff will be recommending that this Planning Commission approve 38722, subject to all the original conditions and the new conditions that is included in your package. Staff is available to answer your question, and of course the applicant are still here to make their presentation and answer questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Questions of staff? I have just a couple. I wanted to understand Lot T, I guess it's is it Lot I? It's an existing drainage easement from where to where? Is that? It's a 20-foot drainage easement, it said. How, do you know how, is that walled off? It's on the inside of the wall for the property?
I'm going to call on the engineer to speak more to that. So,
Madam Chair, if we're going to go into, maybe we have the applicant do a presentation, then
Right,
do
we'll do that.
questions.
Before we do that, we'll ask you once.
Okay.
We'll ask those questions in public hearing. So I think most of my questions were what those, there are several drainage easements on this that I kind of want to understand better and how they will function with the existing lots, which look to me like they're applicant questions. I did have one that came from the public, which was the airport. There are no new airport conditions that, would the airport conditions extend to single-family homes here? Is what the airport does, is that because this was permitted in 2004, are we subject here to 2004 airport conditions, or?
Correct. So it was reviewed at the time of the PD in 2004, and no issues were raised. I don't believe it was recirculated to them as
yeah, so that's correct. So when the original PDD was approved, they reviewed it, ALOC reviewed it, and the conditions were issued at that time. So that's still.
And so those are the conditions that apply into the future?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because those 2 lots were originally determined for residential purposes. So had that changed, we would have to go back and recirculate it to ALOC, but that wasn't the case here.
Okay, so their review is done.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, I think that most of my questions will be for the applicant. Public, and there are no questions of staff. So the public hearing is open. The applicant has 10 minutes.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, staff, consistent with the previous application, we're excited to bring this project to Ascena. I think you've noted, staff noted that we've actually reduced the density. The density is allowed on the project is a lot more than we've presented here in this map, and we're excited to bring you a high-quality, single-family residential project here. I think any questions you may have about engineering that I can't answer, certainly brought the real smart engineering company here to help me out with that. I think relative to the airport and types of impacts like that, they may have been addressed in the mitigated negative deck back when it was originally established, I believe. And those conditions would have been part of what we're going to adopt as well, if I recall. So we've reviewed them and we've seen the conditions. And there's nothing there that I thought was problematic for us for whatever that's worth. And I can bring in up the engineer if you have questions that might relate to engineering.
For the planning director, would you rather we do that during the question period for the applicant or to have him
Why
come
don't
up?
we have the public comments and then, I mean, it's ultimately your call, Madam Chair, but
I think we'll bring him up after public comment. This matter is before the public. If members of the public would wish to speak, you have 3 minutes.
our first speaker is Mark Gilbert. So for those who spoke on the first item, if your testimony is the same, you are of course welcome to speak again. You may also speak into the record if you'd like to enter the same testimony, or you may just skip and we'll move on. So we'll go to Audrey Joseph.
Hi, I just want to make a comment about something that the engineer said when he was talking before. He said the noise ordinance is 65 dB. That is true. But you can't control the noise on Gene Autry. The city can't mandate 65 dB for trucks that go down Gene Autry. It's a major thoroughfare to the freeway, and it's very loud. And it is definitely more than 65 dB, especially during daytime hours and in the very early morning. So I think that, I'm not sure what the status is here in Palm Springs of what the maximum sound that can be in a home inside of a house when you build it. So I know that it should be, in a commission I sat on before, the maximum internal sound was 38 dB that can infiltrate into a house, which meant sometimes double pane windows, sometimes triple pane windows. It's the kind of sheetrock you use and everything to build it. So I'm curious to know what the sound inside these homes are going to be tested for once you build them, if they're going to back up onto Gene Autry. That's my question. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Don Cecil, who is not going to speak again. We have Frank Crumley.
Hello, good evening, commissioners, staff, and my fellow public spectators. I'm Frank Crumley, a resident of Ascena. I am wanting to make a comment because, you know, we have impact groups that look out for the interest of the airport. We have a lot of 17 different departments that are looking at this little plot of land to make sure everything is sliced and diced just right. But I'm a resident of Ascena, and who is looking at my impact study. I am, so I wanted to share those thoughts with you. Right now, I think Ascena is a sprawling community. It's very large. And as you may can tell by my accent, I'm in the southern part of Ascena. I'm really near the dog park. I am actually within that 500 feet that is affected. So I've tried to envision what this looks like. I have taken to heart what Fernando has said tonight about building attractive homes and being at the entrance of the neighborhood and keeping the value good for future sales. Not only for the homes, but for developers to buy. And, you know, those things are meaningful to me as well. Let's go back to that point of coming into the neighborhood, into the entrance of the neighborhood. What I am concerned about is this is very dense. Yes, it is within somebody's guidelines that said it could be even more dense, but that's irrelevant. If we're talking about what is it like, how does it impact you as a resident, when you come in there, you drive into the neighborhood and you have that section that is so dense, like the first section, People are going to take the path of least resistance. Where are they going to park? They're going to have guests. There's no guest parking there. The streets are narrow at best. And the place that's least resistance is Grandview. So as soon as you drive into the neighborhood onto Grandview, you're going to be faced with all these cars that are parked there. And whose problem is that? That's the HOA's problem, right? It's like, oh, you can make a rule that you can't park there. Okay, so then what are you going to do? You got to police it. Who's going to do that? Is that going to be an extra person on staff to police it? Are we going to tow our people that are trying to visit our friends and family? Are we going to tow them out of our neighborhood? Is that what we really want our neighborhood to be? Anyway, I would just ask that it really be looked at. This is very dense. There's no guest parking, and it's going to create a flood of additional parking at times on Grandview and change what the community feels like when you pull into it. And that's my impact study. Not inside there, because I'm not buying one of those houses. I already got a house. So I'm worried about what it's going to be like in there, but I am worried about trying to get to my house and how it impacts me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tracy Martin.
Evening. My name is Tracy Martin. I actually live almost across the street from where this development will occur, so I do have a kind of a vested interest. I'm not sure if the commission is aware that currently our HOA is controlled by the developer. The real estate department in Sacramento determined that that should have expired over a year ago. So we now have a developer who runs our HOA who's now asking for the right to lay out these lots with really no independent HOA representation having a say or providing input. So I'm concerned about that, for one. I appreciate what Fernando said about these are going to be, their intention is to have these for sale units. Intentions are great, but we know in a business world, if they're going to make more money making these rental properties, they're going to do that. And this layout that you're going to approve tonight may or may not be appropriate for a rental community versus a for sale community. So two requests on my part would be, one, don't approve this until there is a fully constituted independent HOA board. And two, if you are going to approve it, make a condition on commitment these are going to be for sale homes, not for rent homes. Thank you.
We have no other speakers signed up to speak. If anyone would like to speak.
Right, the applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal, and if you would come forward with your engineer.
So I think I'll do the best I can to answer the questions regarding noise. So the dB requirement for that wall might be 65 dB, but the applicant, the lady was correct in that what we want to do is build homes that have lower noise levels, certainly along the streets where there's the highest impact. My experience is that when building gets a hold of this, before the homes are approved at the building department, if they know the homes are backing up to a street with a higher dB level, or dB impacts, if you will, they'll require those homes to have a thicker insulation, if you will, as well as the windows. It's not just the dual pane, but they also go to a thicker diameter as well, not diameter, but thickness, as well as higher levels of insulation also. And so as a builder, you'd want to mitigate those conditions for the home buyer, because if as a home buyer, you're going to ask those questions. You're going to ask the tough questions. God, if I'm buying next to Gene Autry, what's the noise going to sound like inside my home? So we would want to do that anyway. And I think building department may require that as well, if I recall, but I just don't know that. Regarding the density, certainly we're way under the density allocation. And if I recall, once again, there's no street parking. And so, I'm not there all the time. The residents are, but when I am there, and I'm there a few times a month, we have construction currently going. I noticed that it's well-maintained, and I don't see, maybe I just missed it, but I haven't seen a parking problem. As you know, when you authorize and you approve these projects, the theory is that homeowners are going to park inside their garages, and I know how difficult that is. But nonetheless, we expect that we're going to manage this project, this community, the same way that the balance of Ascena is going to be managed as well. And regarding the HOA question that the gentleman had, that's interesting. I know it's not before you this evening. Obviously, it's not an issue, but I want you to know from our perspective that we did go through the DRE process, and we were elected appropriately, and I think there's a legal representation that I could bring, I think that stated that. But certainly, I'm off the board. I think it's in the end of this month. I was elected by, by people that elected me to be president of that board. And, but once again, there's going to be a new board that's coming into Ascena, I believe it's in December, or maybe it's January, but it's, this has no relevancy, I think, with what we're deciding here this evening. The relevancy would be relative to the CC&Rs, and we're certainly going to accommodate whatever CC&Rs are, representative for this project. So, any questions or the civil engineer here? I have them if you have questions about the street widths and things of that nature.
I have questions. Just let me go through them. Lot H is a lettered lot, and it looks to me like you could, it's not serving any purpose to take Street G all the way down at that point in time, because it's not serving Lot 42 or Lot 41 in any fashion. So that's a question. I'm looking at the same thing on Lot 34 and
36 and 37?
Yeah. So just in terms of if our various departments can agree to it, can we make lettered Lot H slightly longer or give some of the land to Lot 42? Give some of the land to Lot 41. But it doesn't look to me like we need to. It's not bad to have a decent sized lettered lot as a open space. We have a number of those in Ascena, so expanding that open space actually would be nice.
Makes it more feasible, I agree.
It makes it more feasible, so if you'd be willing to consider that. And as I look at Street E on Lot 36, we could give more of that land to Lot 36 for a driveway, or give, it looks to me like that could be conserved a little bit. So I don't know if you want to respond to those two questions.
Yeah, we can look at shortening those dead ends so that you provide more land to the lot 36 in this case, and that would provided it's not a problem for fire or police.
And with possibly expanding lettered Lot H, because that might be useful to the residents to have a lettered lot there, or give more of the land to 41 and 42.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to cut that off maybe a little bit, and I don't know, I think you could, I don't know if 41 gets more land, or you just increase the open space that's between them.
And either one of those would be better suggestions. It's large enough that I think the HOA could handle that. A tiny lot is really difficult to handle, but a decent-sized one is not. So, but giving more land to 41 is also good.
Yeah, and the landscape will certainly add value to that street
Yeah.
section there. Yeah, we're happy to do that.
I wanted to commend you on Lot A. That's nice to get a open space parcel for the neighborhood. I'm assuming that that's what that is.
Where is that at?
Lot A is next to 21.
Oh, there it
Okay.
is.
And just wanted to commend you for that. Thank you. It's a decent-sized open space is always useful for the community.
One of the entries.
And then I wanted to understand, I just didn't understand Lot F and Lot T. How are those going to be blocked off?
Where are they at?
They're drainage lots. Lot F is in between 29 and 28. And Lot T is behind Lot 50. And are those existing drainage swells? What are those?
Yes, for lot F, or is that P? Well, I'll take the one between lots.
It looks like a
20
P.
Looks between lots 28 and 29.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to the storm drain and hydrology report that was prepared in 2003. And so Ascena is, because Ascena is down, basically downhill or below the property to the northwest, that existing piece of property, they're responsible for taking the natural water that would come off that site.
So Acena's taking the water from one of the storage units. I think that's a
They're
storage
only
lot.
required to take what naturally fell when that was a vacant lot.
Okay.
So that's their only requirement. Since then, this storage place has been built, and they built a large retention basin, and their program is that they're retaining in the 100-year storm. So theoretically, we wouldn't see any water, but we have to take provisions. There'll be probably a few holes at the bottom of that wall when it's built, and those holes will, actually, I think they're already there. Those holes will allow, if we get a huge storm and the retention basin fills up and overflows, we would receive that water onto the project.
And so this is walled off and safe for the residents on either side of it?
You'll have their lot walls, their side yard walls will be running along the sides.
And that's similar for Lot T is? Or Lot I at the very
south end?
very south end?
Now, the Lot I at the south end, or at the south end is Lot S. Are we looking at the same one? Oh, south.
Lot 50. Just
Okay, the one below Lot 50.
And drainage is, for the public, drainage
Okay,
is an
yes.
issue in that area.
Okay. Yeah, so that's an existing 20-foot easement that's in place. There's actually a large storm drain, Riverside County Flood Control storm drain line that runs underneath it.
So,
And it runs out to the golf course and terminates in the golf course. In the future, this is what Ascena had to do, required to do. In the future, if the projects to the west develop and they're required to build the Riverside County Flood Control Master Storm Drain Line, they would connect to that line and it would go.
Okay.
So it won't have any water in it until the project to the west develops.
okay. Those, and the same questions for the other property. You're intending to build these as single-family homes?
We are.
Okay, and in terms of the conditions, the same conditions, two of the curb cuts are already here, correct? And you're going to be making 2 additional curb cuts
That's correct.
Yes.
off of Grandview
Yes.
for the homes that are there. Just as a question, it was really on this street that I was concerned, on Street O, that I was concerned about the hammerheads. With most of Ascena, there's a smooth drive-through when you've got several homes, and ending Street O at Lot 20 and 25 and not figuring out a way to make that a smooth drive around was the concern, one of the concerns I had regarding hammerheads. Street D, yes. Connecting Street D to. Yeah. And it's clear you probably would lose a lot in that area.
3 at least.
But in terms of the way the rest of the property is built out, streets generally turn around and people can make loops unless they're streets that are small, like,
Yeah, and in this case, these streets are serving a small number of lots. It's not even the development as a whole, it doesn't have that many lots in it. So Street D is essentially that direction, serving eight lots, so traffic and.
usually our
private
streets turn, and it might be, if it's 1 or 2 homes that are being served, like in Vermillion, where we have short streets. I don't have the authority to require you to change it. I just want to let you know that I'm concerned that it doesn't match what is in the rest of the community in terms of a smooth drive flow. And if you watch our sanitation trucks whip through the area, a smooth drive flow is really important to the residents. So I think, Commissioner Rotman has questions.
Yeah, so just a correction, you have 2 Lot A's on your plan. One is the south side of the Street H, which is the entry, and then other Lot A is the large parcel that the Chair Wormiak referred to as the large public space.
21.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
Next
just, you may,
21, and then between 70.
right, yes, you may want to just correct that. And then, similar to about Lot H, that was addressed already by the Chair. And then 36 and 37, 36 and 37 were also addressed. But I had similar questions about, let me get this over here.
Can I go back to the 2 Lot A's? And I apologize, I'm not seeing it.
So you see
entry
where
off of Grand-
Street H is?
Off of Grandview.
Off of Grandview?
There's a Lot A and a Lot B on both sides of the drive.
You've got a separation in the middle of the street.
All right. So question at the Hammerhead between lots 13 and 14, which are at the north end. Again, it seems like that lot 14 could take advantage of that street.
Sure, and then just give the lot to,
Yeah.
give more lot to 14.
Right. The same with 48 and 57. Let me just see where that is. So that's Street B, that's toward the south, before you get the Panhandle.
Yeah.
And actually, it goes to a safety concern as well. The longer those are allowed to be, the darker they become as well.
Right.
And so I see the value in it.
Yeah. And then 55 and 56. Let me just refine that from my notes. Yeah, so that's off of Street I, which is one of the little cul-de-sacs. And I'm just wondering whether you actually need that to go all the way.
Yeah, it looks like 56 driveway would be off the long side of Street I, but if you gave the rest of the lot to 55, they could use it as a drive-in.
Right.
They could drive
Right.
it straight in or turn.
Right. And then just an idea for Lot H, there's been a lot of comment from the public about a dog park. Maybe it's either open space or maybe Lot H becomes a small dog park. It would be about 4,000 square feet, plus or minus.
Where's that?
Lot H,
Next to 41.
yeah, between 41 and 42.
Lot R?
No,
I think
Lot
those are two
H.
different maps. Oh, okay. One of our maps is updated. Okay. Yes,
Yeah, so
that's,
if you get rid of that hammerhead, you'd end up picking up about 900 square feet, plus or minus. So you get about a 4,000 square foot lot, which could be a small dog park or open space, but just something to consider.
I think we can work with our landscape company. It just happens to be the same. I guess my question would be, for a dog park, how much square footage, is appropriate? And whether or not the HOA would like to maintain another dog park and where also. So maybe it's a conversation that we have.
I think that's an appropriate conversation with the HOA, but making that a larger open space at this point in time would serve this community that you're creating well.
Goes back to the comment you made earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to reiterate that I have some concerns with Street D, the length of that for the lots facing 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 22, 3, 4, and 5. Just the length of that, it being a dead end. And, you'll have to obviously get approval from the fire department, but I think there may be a better layout for that.
Which is a comment I shared with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
all righty.
So just in terms of these, given that we have to get approval from our various entities, you're okay with the changes that we talked about, possibly shortening those streets in those areas?
Subject to engineering and planning.
And then the same conditions in terms of resolving the other issues with the HOA?
Right. My caution would be that these are all, we have a 911 outage for anyone who wants to share with their loved ones. Let's see if I can make it stop. As long as we're clear that that's direction for the applicant to work with staff to see what they can do on these, and we're not directing changes, particularly on Street D. I just want to clarify, we do already have sign off from our city departments, so we don't
Right.
have any ability at our level to mandate the changes, but we can
would
certainly
like
work
you
with them.
to work that through with staff. Just a couple of comments for the public. I think, comments that Tracy Martin raised, and they were very good, but we don't have the authority, I believe, am I correct, to dictate that these are for sale lots?
That's correct. The tenure of the housing units is not before you tonight. Again, we have a council-approved development plan in place here. The density, all of those issues have been decided already, and we are not looking at the tenure.
So that issue is something the Planning Commission can't resolve. The larger issue in that regard is something that people should take up with the council in terms of future policy, but that's not before us. And also, I really appreciate the comments about the noise inside the units, the noise level and the concern about that, but that's probably something that would be taken up when the plans come back to us, as opposed to, we don't have purview at this time. So for the general public, we have very limited purview over this because of the Subdivision Map Act and parties that this goes through. So even though it's listed as discretionary, we have exceedingly limited purview.
And I would add, if I may, Madam Chair, other legislation at the state level that certainly restricts our ability to deny or shape housing projects, we are also bound by. So we have the findings under the Subdivision Map Act, which are in the report, and then also other direction under state law in terms of how we can process housing applications.
And one other question that the public asked that I wanted to raise with you is the public asked for a study session regarding the rest of the project that comes forward that had different entitlements than these lots, and where is staff on that?
Right, so I think that we're currently in the process of working with them on that northwest portion of the property, which I believe had been identified for multifamily and potentially hotel uses back in the original PD. It's a little bit unusual to have a study session on a track map, but I think given that there is a lot of breadth in what can be done there under the original approvals, we would be certainly open to it and can work with the applicant on their willingness to do so as well. But those, I think, we're at an earlier stage in where it makes sense versus these that, are fairly dictated by the prior approvals and the Subdivision Map Act.
So we are before the commission. Commissioner Rotman, do you want me to make a motion, or do you want to do that?
You're very good at it.
When I wasn't chair, I did that. I would always be the first person offering to make a motion, but that was history. Okay, on this, recommending approval with the applicant looking at Street D between 13 and 14, Street E between 34 and 37, Lot H, expanding Lot H between 41 and 42, looking between 48 and 57 to shorten that street, looking between 56 and 55, and 52 and 50, looking at those streets to see if some of that land could be given to the one area on Lot H, expanding that as public, and with the others seeing if there is a way of shortening those streets and giving more land to the lots, and correcting the lot names so that we don't have two Lot As. And for the applicant to look, if they are willing to look at some easier flow on Street D so that it's not quite as deep a hammerhead. And the conditions that we imposed before of looking without prejudicing how those issues are resolved, looking with the HOA at wall placement, maintenance, ingress and egress, and all of the other items we mentioned in the last one. So those would be the conditions. We haven't overstepped. Planning director had one.
We can work with that. I will not be able to repeat that motion for you all, but we will, again, sort it out after.
Do we have a second?
May I make an
Yes.
amendment?
Sure.
Or just, and this is something I didn't bring up, but looking at streets I and J, which are the two short streets down at the Panhandle, would it be possible, and again, just to look at this, to possibly make them a little wider? You have some of the largest lots there. You have one property that is over 10,000 square feet, and then 7,054 on either side of Lot I. And on J, you have two parcels that are over 9,000 square feet. So I'm wondering if you could make those streets wider and possibly accommodate some guest parking, street parking, even though I know there's no, it's, from a practical point of view, it would help residents having someplace to park.
We're at this, is that a request?
It's a
for the
request.
applicant to look at that? So before we, because I think we're at that point, I don't think, can we,
I think if you're willing to, Madam Chair, make an amendment to your motion, we could just throw that into the list for them
I'm
to examine.
perfectly willing to make an amendment to my motion.
And that gives us the flexibility to work with them
Right.
and our technical departments to see if that's even possible.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Madam Chair, the caveat I would have is, as long as it's not in conflict with the CC&Rs, relative to the guest parking.
Yeah, and it should not be in conflict
I
with the
don't know.
CCNRs.
We'd have to work with engineering
I think the motion as written allows
my-
us that flexibility.
Okay.
If it's in conflict with any of our technical reviews, the CCNRs, the other 12 agencies that we circulate to, then obviously we won't be able to
Okay.
do it, but we'll all work
Yep.
together to see what's possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And to clarify, all of those conditions would be subject to engineering and planning sign-off?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So I second that.
Can you call the roll? Is there comment? Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wermick,
Yes.
Commissioner Rotman,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your input on this. Okay, we have no unfinished business. We have no new business. The Planning Commissioner reports, requests, and comments. The only one I have is Christmas party. Did we set a date? It's
December 20th? if we
December
can.
20th. Can people make that date?
We would like to have moved it to the week prior, but we have a planning commission on the 13th. We have city council on the 14th, which I will be required at.
And we usually have this on Thursday night because staff doesn't work on Friday, and we don't want to make staff drive into Palm Springs from where they live. It's a very nice party for staff, by us, and we also invite architectural review, and I think this year we were going to invite HSPB.
That's right.
If no one else wants to volunteer their house, my house is fine.
You have a lovely house.
Yes.
I just would note the 20th is a Wednesday. If we wanted to stick to the Thursday, that would be the 21st. I'm not sure if that's getting too close to the holidays for folks. It works for me.
We can do any of those dates.
Why don't we hold the 20th tentatively? I'll do a little polling, and if we need to adjust it, we will.
And if we had to switch to another date, you can let us know. We'll talk more about that at our next meeting.
Yes.
Planning Director's report.
Sure, I have a few items. The first I wanted to update you all on was the Starbucks drive-through that was approved at the last Planning Commission meeting. It did go to the Architectural Review Committee on Monday. They had a fairly robust conversation about it, and I would characterize as holding their noses and approving it, but subject to additional changes to the landscaping and some of the sort of facade improvements, particularly along the frontages. However, yesterday, a request was filed by the City Council to call the item up. So under the Municipal Code, Section 2, any member of City Council may initiate a council review of any action by a council-appointed commission or body. That's you. So they have called up the approval of that action. We have 45 days to schedule the hearing. That will likely happen at the December 14th council meeting, which is why I will need to be there. And so we will see what their decision is. They can set aside the decision, they will hold a de novo hearing, and they are free to make their own decision.
And
or
they
confirm
can
the
make
planning.
changes.
They can make changes, they can deny, they can approve, as you did. I don't have a lot of clarity on why they have called it up. I think we can all sort of presume, but that's as much as I know, so just an update on that. The other thing that I handed around was our ARC schedule, liaison schedule that we had discussed at our last meeting. So because Commissioner Miller had sort of indicated he had dropped the ball, his name is on there twice. So he will take the first stab at our one meeting in December, and then he will go back in July. But we will cycle through relatively alphabetically. I think there were a couple conflicts in there I was aware of. So you'll see your name on the list. We will send out calendar reminders, so those are on your calendars, but each of you will take a month and you will attend ideally in person, but remote is certainly an option as well. The 2 ARC meetings that are in the month that you are scheduled, just so that we can again have that fluidity and information between the commissions, so that we're reporting to them and back to you all in terms of what those decisions are and conversations are. Finally, we've been talking a lot about appointments to the Architectural Review Committee. We did, in the end, get a decent amount of applications for our 5 vacancies. And of course, the ARC is very prescribed in terms of who can sit and in what capacity. We need to have a certain number of registered architects, a certain number of landscape architects, then we need architectural designers. So there's a bit of sifting through the applications there to see which need each of the applicants would fill. But what we would like to do as a next step is ask for you all to form a subcommittee that would allow us to review those in more detail, conduct brief interviews, and then make some recommendations that we would bring back to the full Planning Commission, ideally at our December meeting, to get those vacancies filled. So I would like to recommend the chair, if I might, and I think if, just to give my 2 cents, but of course it's up to your discretion, given that Commissioner Rotman most recently served on the ARC, I think that his voice would be really instrumental to that decision-making process. So I'd like to tell him to potentially sit on that committee as well, with your blessing. And then, of course,
Volunteer is a great word.
I like that.
and of course, I would sit on that as well, with your blessing. So I would like to make that request to you, Madam Chair, if you'd like to.
And Commissioner Rotman, you're willing to do
Yes,
that?
I'll agree to that.
And I've done some preliminary review of applications, so that would be fine.
Great. So we will get those meetings scheduled. Is anyone opposed? I guess we should ask to make sure that it has the majority support. Great. I want to do it. So we will get those meetings scheduled in the next week or two and get that back on the December 13th agenda.
Either of you we'd be happy if you want to, but you don't need to volunteer.
It could be a subcommittee of 3 or 4.
That concludes my updates.
So with that, the subcommittee is appointed.
Yes, thank you. That's it for me.
With that, the meeting, we are adjourned until 5:30 Wednesday, December 13th. Really? That far? We don't have a second meeting this month. I'm going to miss all of you. So we'll be in touch about the Christmas party.